what they believed to be two life-sized mannequins down an embankment near a creek. But when deputies arrived on scene, they discovered two bodies.
It was March 12th, 2023, a regular Sunday morning in Vancouver, Washington. The sun was coming up. People were starting their day. But for one grandmother, this Sunday would change her life forever. She picked up the phone, dialed the Vancouver Police Department. Her voice was shaking because her daughter was missing. Her granddaughter too. No phone call, no text, no goodbye. Just silence. Now stop and think about that for a second. A young mother, 27 years old, and her little girl, only 7. Both of them gone. The grandmother told the dispatcher she hadn't heard from them in days, and this wasn't normal. Not for Meshay. Not at all. Because Meshay Melendez wasn't the kind of woman who disappeared. She was a single mum, devoted, loving, present. She didn't run off. She didn't ghost her family. She showed up. So when Grandma Nicole Norris finally got somebody on the phone, she already knew. Deep down, she knew something was wrong. She told reporters later, and I want you to listen to this carefully. I'm missing a whole part of me. That's my daughter. That's my granddaughter. We don't know where they're at. That's a mother begging. That's a grandmother breaking. And the Vancouver Police Department had a problem on their hands. A big one. Because Vancouver, Washington, for those who don't know, sits right on the border with Oregon. It's one of the most populated cities in the state. And it's got a violent crime rate higher than the state average. So a missing mom, a missing 7-year-old, that's a 5-alarm fire for any detective, right? You drop everything, you find them. But the question was, where to start? Who was the last person to see them? Well, the police had a name. A burgundy Dodge Charger. A man behind the wheel. His name was Kirkland Warren. He was Meshay's ex-boyfriend. He had been with her the night before she vanished. He had been with her the morning of. And what the detectives would soon learn about Kirkland Warren would shake this entire community to its core. I'm telling you right now, this case has secrets you cannot imagine. A second murder, 2,000 miles away. A wife, a bank scheme, a pattern of violence the system saw coming and did nothing about. But before we get there, let me set the scene properly. Vancouver, Washington, isn't. Vancouver, Canada, different country, different city. This one sits right across the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon. Quiet neighborhoods, strip malls, working class folks just trying to live. It's the kind of place where everybody knows somebody, where bad news travels fast and good news travels faster. So when word got out that a young mum and her little girl had vanished, the whole city felt it. Friends were calling friends. Neighbors were searching. Everybody wanted answers. Because Meshay wasn't anonymous. She was somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's niece, somebody's mama. And Layla? Layla was somebody's classmate, somebody's playmate, a face in a school photo. She mattered to a whole community of people. And on that March morning, they were all about to find out something terrible. Welcome back to the Decoder. This story is heavy. It's heartbreaking. It's infuriating. And by the end of it, you're going to be asking yourself one big question. How did the system let this happen? Stay with me. Okay, let's rewind. Let's go back to that night, March 11th, 2023. Meshay shows up at her friend's apartment. The friend's name? Joe. Mutual friend. Knew Meshay. knew Kirkland, and Meshay didn't show up alone. She brought her 7-year-old daughter Layla, and she brought Kirkland. Now you might be asking yourself, why were they at a friend's place? Why not Meshay's apartment? Why not Kirkland's? I'll tell you why. One reason: a restraining order. Meshay had a no-contact order against Kirkland, a court order, active, legal. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near her, but they were trying to work things out. That's what Kirkland told police later. So they hid out at Joe's place. Couldn't be seen together at home. That should tell you something already. That should tell you everything. Now, around 5 in the morning, still dark outside, Meshay and Kirkland leave the apartment. Layla stays behind with Joe. Kirkland said they were going out to make some money, whatever that meant. A few hours pass. Around 8 in the morning, Kirkland pulls back up. The car? A burgundy Dodge Charger. Music blasting. Loud. Joe walks outside, looks into the car, and here's where it gets disturbing. Meshay is in the passenger seat. She's passed out, and she's naked from the waist down. Joe reaches in to turn the music down, and Kirkland snaps, shouts at her, tells her to close the door. But Joe, she doesn't suspect anything yet. She still trusts him. So Joe does something she will regret for the rest of her life. She walks back inside. She gets little Layla, and she hands the little girl over. She puts that 7-year-old in the car, with her kitten, Rocky, because Layla loved cats. She had a kitten on her shirt that very day. She took Rocky everywhere. And as Kirkland pulled away from that apartment, Rocky was probably the last thing Layla ever saw alive. Stop and think about that. A 7-year-old, sitting next to her unconscious mother, holding her kitten, not knowing anything was wrong. That was it. The last time anyone saw them alive. 6 days passed. 6 days of nothing. Meshay's mother kept calling. No answer. She drove around the city, looking. She was the one, not the police. Her. She found Meshay's car, abandoned, parked in the Van Mall neighborhood, the same neighborhood where Joe's apartment was. That's when she called the police again. That's when the welfare check happened. But by then, it was already too late. Way too late. Now, fast forward. March 22nd, 2023. The police have brought Kirkland Warren into custody. Not for murder, not yet. For violating that no-contact order against Meshay. But the detectives wanted more than that. They wanted answers. So a missing persons detective sat down across from him, inside a Vancouver jail, folding chairs, cold table, and he started the interview real soft. I guess first of all, how you holding up, right? That's how you build rapport. You don't come in hot, you come in calm. The detective explained who he was. Said he was a missing persons detective. Said he handled cell phones, computers, tech stuff. Called himself a geek. He was trying to make Kirkland comfortable, trying to make him talk. And Kirkland did talk. He told the detective his version of events. Said he and Meshay had been at Joe's place together. Said they had a nice night, slept together. Everything was fine. He said, in the morning, they left in his Charger. Said he dropped Meshay off at her own car. Said she had parked it down the street. He let her out. She drove away. And that, according to him, was the last time he saw her. The detective pushed gently, asked about Layla, asked where they might have gone. Kirkland shrugged. Said he didn't know. Said maybe Meshay's ex-husband had something to do with it. But here's the thing. The police had already checked the ex-husband. He didn't have a no-contact order against him. Kirkland did. The detective shifted gears, started talking about Layla specifically. I got 2 of my own, he said. I'm more interested in that little girl. He was using empathy, trying to crack a wall, and Kirkland kept talking. But you have to understand he was lying. He was lying through his teeth. Because there was something the detective already knew, something Kirkland didn't think they had figured out yet. The police had already searched his car, found shell casings, found a large blue tarp, found blood. Meshay's blood, Layla's blood. They knew. They already knew, but they wanted Kirkland to admit it, to say the words himself. The detective leaned in, said, "Do you think I'm here to judge you?" Kirkland said no. Then the detective asked the key question. "Do you think maybe I have found them?" Kirkland said, "I hope not. I hope not." 3 words. And the detective said, "I hope not in the way that I'm about to say." That was the moment Kirkland Warren knew. He knew the police had everything, but watch what he did. He didn't break. He didn't cry. He didn't fall apart. That tells you something. A normal person, innocent or guilty, when they hear the bodies might have been found, there's a reaction. Tears, anger, denial, something. Kirkland, he just sat there, calm, calculated, cold. The detective tried again, said, "Tell me about the mistake. You're a man, not a monster, a man that maybe made a mistake." He was giving Kirkland a way out, a story he could live with. Kirkland wouldn't take it. He kept deflecting, kept trying to talk about the Arkansas case instead, about anything else. Then the detective played his ace. He said, "I was there. I was at the scene. I know what road you were off of. I know why there's mud on your car. I know why there's tire tracks down that little road that goes up where you turned around and went back." He was laying it all out, telling Kirkland, "I have everything." And still Kirkland didn't confess. He just asked for his attorney. Interview over. But the case? The case was just getting started. Now, I want to pause for a second, because we've been talking about a case, a timeline, evidence, interrogations. But these were people, real people, living, breathing, loving people. So let me tell you who Meshay Melendez was. She was 27 years old, a single mother. She lived in Vancouver, Washington. Some people called her Carmen, and her whole world? Her daughter, Layla. Anybody who knew Meshay knew that Layla was everything to her. She used to make TikTok videos with her daughter, dancing together, laughing. She once said, and I love this line, "I don't know how I got blessed with such an amazing daughter." That was her energy, grateful, present, in love with her kid. And Layla? She was a 7-year-old with a future, doing well in school, loved animals, especially cats, had her little kitten Rocky that she carried everywhere. She was the kind of kid that lit up a room, that had a personality, that had dreams. Her aunt Lachey Gates said it best later in court. "My niece was full of life and potential, taken away in a moment of senseless violence, full of life, full of potential." That was Layla Stewart. And her dad? Javonte Stewart. He wasn't with Meshay anymore, but he loved his daughter. You'll hear from him later. And then there was Grandma, Nicole Norris, the woman who made that first frantic call. For Nicole, Meshay was her whole world. Layla was her only granddaughter. She said later, and I want you to really sit with these words, "The day I lost them, I lost a part of myself. A part of me died with my girls. I am no longer a girl mom. I am no longer a grandmother." Read that again. I am no longer a grandmother. That's not just grief. That's identity shattering. Because for some people, grandma is who you are. It's how you introduce yourself. It's your reason for getting up in the morning. And in one weekend in March, that was ripped away from her. Now, Meshay wasn't perfect. We're going to get into some complicated stuff in the next chapter. She had some legal trouble brewing. She had a complicated relationship with Kirkland. But here's what I want you to understand. She didn't deserve this. Her daughter didn't deserve this. Nobody deserves this. You can be complicated, you can be flawed, you can make mistakes. You still don't deserve to be murdered. Your child still doesn't deserve to be assaulted and shot in the head. And whatever Meshay was tangled up in, none of it justified what happened to her. So, as we move into the darker parts of this story, remember who they were. Meshay, Carmen, as some called her, Layla, the little girl with the kitten. Real people, real lives, real loss. Now let's get into the part that makes this story so infuriating. Because Kirkland Warren, he wasn't an unknown threat. He wasn't a stranger. The system knew him. The system knew exactly who he was. Let me lay it out for you. Date by date, December 2022, 3 months before the murders. Meshay calls 911. She tells the dispatcher that Kirkland just assaulted her. She says he fired shots at her balcony window while she was looking outside. Think about that for a second. He didn't just yell at her. He didn't just push her. He fired a gun at the window she was standing at. That's attempted murder. That's terror. Now February 2023. Investigators corroborate her story with a witness, a friend who was there during the altercation. Same story, confirmed. But then, and this is critical, 2 weeks later, Meshay recants. She tells police she lied, says she and her friend both have mental health issues, says she made it up, says please don't arrest him. Now, if you know anything about domestic violence, you know exactly what that is. That's a victim being pressured. That's a victim being scared. That's a victim trying to protect her abuser because he's threatening her. It is textbook. But the police? They didn't buy it. They investigated anyway. March 2nd, Kirkland is arrested. The charges? Second-degree domestic violence assault, drive-by shooting, making a false statement, harassment, possession of a stolen firearm. That's a stack of serious charges. The prosecutor rated him a 31 on a danger scale, on a scale of 1 to 18. He was off the chart. The judge set bail at $100,000, issued a domestic violence no-contact order. And what does Kirkland do within hours of getting that order? He calls Meshay from jail, twice, tells her she's the reason he got arrested, tells her to get the charges dropped. That's a violation right there. That's prosecutable on its own. He gets out on bail later that day, gets cited for the violation. The judge orders higher bail and GPS monitoring. That was March 6th. The next day, March 7th, the case got dismissed. He was released. No GPS monitor, no tracking. That is the failure. That is where the system broke. Because Washington has a law. It's called the Tiffany Hill Act, passed in 2020. It allows courts to require GPS ankle monitors on domestic violence offenders. It exists for cases exactly like this one. But it wasn't used. It wasn't enforced. And 5 days later, Meshay and Layla were dead. 5 days. So, when family advocates today say the system failed Meshay, this is what they mean. He fired at her apartment. He violated a court order from jail. He was rated maximum danger, and he walked without a monitor, without a tracker. 5 days. That's all it took. Now here's where the story gets even darker. Because Kirkland Warren, he wasn't just a domestic violence suspect. He wasn't just an ex with a temper. He was already wanted for murder. In Arkansas. Let me take you back, way back, November 2017, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. A 57-year-old man named Curtis Urquhart goes missing. Curtis was no angel either. He had his own legal trouble. charged earlier that year with forgery and theft. But on November 27th of 2017, he was last seen leaving a law office with a young man, a 22-year-old. That young man? Kirkland Warren. 2 weeks later, December 11th, 3 men found Curtis Urquhart's body, lying in a ditch. He'd been shot in the head. His body had been mutilated by wildlife. Now this is where you have to stop, because the parallels with what happened in Vancouver, they're terrifying. A victim, shot in the head, dumped in a remote area, left in a ditch. Sound familiar? That's exactly what happened to Meshay and Layla. Same method, same pattern. The Arkansas police questioned Kirkland, and eventually he confessed, admitted he killed Curtis. His Google searches that month? You're not going to believe this. How to get blood out of a car seat. How to beat murder. Killing the only witness. Ways to get away with murder. He literally Googled how to get away with murder. His story to the police? He said he and Curtis were driving around. Curtis started demanding money. Kirkland refused, got scared, pulled a gun from under the seat, shot him, then dumped the body in a ditch. He was charged with first-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. But here's the kicker, the part that should make you furious. He got out on a $250,000 bond. So between 2018 and 2020, he moved from Arkansas to Washington State, across the country, while awaiting trial for murder. His murder trial just sitting there, pending. And during that time, he picks up new charges in Vancouver. 2020 possession of a stolen handgun. 2021 lied on an application to buy another semi-automatic. He's not even hiding it. He's just stacking violations. And nobody's pulling the bail. Nobody's revoking it. Nobody's saying, hey, wait, this guy is wanted for murder and committing new gun crimes. Now, in December 2022, he uses one of those illegal guns to shoot at Meshay's balcony. The Arkansas judge doesn't revoke his bail until March 17th, 2023, 1 day before Meshay and Layla were reported missing. 1 day, too late. You see the pattern. You see how every single layer of this system failed. Arkansas, Washington, bail, restraining orders, GPS monitors, gun, applications. Every single one failed. Okay, now we need to talk about something complicated, because there was another layer to this story, and it involves Kirkland's wife. That's right, his wife. Because Kirkland wasn't just dating Meshay, he was married. Her name? Meshay Tyler Warren, 26 years old. They had 2 daughters together. Kirkland told police they were in the process of separating, but there's no record of any divorce. Meshay worked at a credit union in Portland, Oregon. She had access to customer accounts, including the ability to change account information. And in November 2022, something started happening at that credit union. Customer accounts were being altered. Money was disappearing. About $25,000 worth of theft. Investigators traced it back to Meshay's credentials. Now here's where Meshay comes in. Because on November 21st, 2022, Meshay's credentials were used to alter account information. And about $220,000. That's right. $220,000 was transferred into an account in Meshay Melendez's name. Meshay was also seen on surveillance footage, opening an account at the credit union that same month, getting out of Meshay's car. So the 2 women, the wife and the girlfriend, knew each other, and they were tangled up in something together. But the question is, why? Why would Meshay and Meshay be working together? The only thing they had in common was Kirkland. When Meshay was questioned by police, she pointed the finger directly at her husband. She said she'd been changing the account information on behalf of Kirkland, said he asked her to do it, said he was directing the whole thing. So picture this for a second. Kirkland is dating Meshay. Kirkland is married to Monet, and Kirkland is using both of them to run a credit union scam. Now, Meshay's TikTok went dark around this same time. Her last post was December 20th, 2022, right around when the thefts were happening. She probably knew the heat was coming, trying to minimize her presence, trying to disappear from the radar. And in both of her last posts, Kirkland is in them. So what was happening? Was Meshay an unwilling participant? Was she being coerced? Was she involved by choice? We may never fully know. But here's what we do know. The bank scheme might be a motive. Because if Meshay was a witness, if she could testify against Kirkland, then she became a liability. And Kirkland Warren? He had already shown that he handled liabilities by killing them. Just ask Curtis Urquhart, who he killed, to eliminate a witness. Now Monet, by the way, pleaded guilty later to 2 counts of first-degree theft and 2 counts of attempted identity theft. She got 2 years of probation, 2 years, for her role in all of this, while Meshay and Layla got death. Let that sink in for a minute. Now, I'm not saying Monet pulled a trigger. Nobody's saying that. But the scheme she helped run, the lies she helped tell, they were part of the world that swallowed Meshay whole. And that's something to think about. And one more thing about Kirkland's background, because this part is wild. His father was a municipal judge in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. That's right, a judge. The same town where Kirkland would later commit murder. But the father resigned back in 2009. Why? Allegations of misconduct, second-degree forgery, abuse of office, attempted theft of property. Now, does that mean the son was destined to be a criminal? No. Plenty of kids of crooked parents grow up to be good people. But it does tell you something about the environment, about the example, about what was modeled in that household. Forgery, theft, abuse of position. The exact same crimes Kirkland would weave into his own life, like father, like son. And that's a tragedy that started long before Meshay ever met him. Now we're back to March 22nd, 2023. The same day Kirkland was being interrogated in jail, somewhere outside Washougal, Washington. A rural road, quiet, wooded. A passerby is walking along, and they see something off the road, down an embankment, near a creek. They think it's 2 mannequins, life-sized mannequins, just lying there. They call the Clark County Sheriff's Office. Deputies show up, and what they find, not mannequins, bodies, 2 bodies, a woman and a little girl, Meshay Melendez, Layla Stewart. Both shot in the head, Meshay once, in the left temple, Layla twice, and Layla was found naked from the waist down. The medical examiner did swabs, sent them to the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab, and the lab came back with a match. Kirkland Warren's DNA. Inside the 7-year-old, Layla had been sexually assaulted before she was murdered. I'm telling you that because you need to know what kind of monster we're dealing with. This wasn't just a double murder. This was a child rape, followed by a child execution. Now, while all this was happening, the police were already searching Kirkland's car, the burgundy Dodge Charger, and what they found: shell casings, a large blue tarp, children's clothing matching what Layla had been wearing, Meshay's purse, and blood, Meshay's blood, Layla's blood. Both of them killed inside that car. The detective had even more: Kirkland's phone records. On March 13th, the day after the murders, he texted a friend, asking if she knew any secluded areas, like woods or a place to bury a gun. On March 15th, 3 days later, he transferred $4,200 from Meshay's bank account into his own, using her phone. And on March 18th, same day, they were reported missing. He texted another friend, "I need to get rid of this stolo." Slang for a stolen car, referring to the Charger. So picture this. He's killed them, dumped their bodies, and in the days after, he's robbing the dead woman's bank account and trying to get rid of the murder weapon and the car. When the detective laid all this out for Kirkland in the interview room, Kirkland's story changed. His new version? He claimed Meshay had a gun for protection. In her line of work, he said she accidentally shot Layla twice and then shot herself once while they were arguing in the car. Let me ask you something. Does anybody accidentally shoot their child in the head twice, then shoot themselves once, then end up in a ditch under a blue tarp? Of course not. Of course not. It's an absurd story. The evidence was overwhelming. The DNA, the blood, the shell casings, the Google searches from the Arkansas case, the texts about secluded areas, the transferred money. There was nowhere left to run. And the truth? The truth was so much worse than anyone wanted to admit, because piece by piece investigators were able to reconstruct what happened. That morning of March 12th, Kirkland drives Meshay somewhere. She ends up unconscious, or near it. He brings her back to Joe's place, music blasting, half-clothed in the passenger seat. Why? Was she drugged? Was she already shot at that point? We don't fully know, but what we do know is this. He took Layla. He drove away with both of them. He shot Meshay in the head. And before he killed Layla, he sexually assaulted her, a 7-year-old child. Then he shot Layla twice in the head. He drove out to that rural road near Washougal, dumped them down an embankment near a creek like trash. And then he just went on with his life, bought a bagel, watched TV with a friend named Nettie, texted people, spent stolen money for 6 days while the world was searching for them. That's who Kirkland Warren is. September 5th, 2024. Kirkland Warren walked into a Clark County courtroom. Days before his trial was supposed to start, prosecutors had lined up 77 witnesses, and he changed his plea. He pleaded guilty to first-degree aggravated murder for Layla, to second-degree murder for Meshay. He also entered an Alford plea to first-degree child molestation. An Alford plea, let me explain that it means he maintains his innocence, but admits there's enough evidence to convict him. He also agreed to plead guilty to the murder of Curtis Urquhart, the Arkansas case from 2017. That sentence would run alongside his Washington time. Arkansas agreed to take the death penalty off the table. Then came October 8th, 2024. Sentencing day. Judge David Gregerson presided, and his words were sharp. Any possibility of this being some horrific accident is squarely contravened by the depraved way in which Meshay and Layla's bodies were disposed of by this defendant. He sentenced Kirkland Warren to life in prison without the possibility of parole, the maximum allowed under Washington law, because Washington abolished the death penalty. The family spoke that day, and I want you to hear what they said. Layla Stewart, Layla's father, spoke virtually. He said, "Losing a child is an unimaginable tragedy, and it's hard to think of all the milestones she will never get to experience." Lachey Gates, Layla's aunt, said, "We will never see her smile again or hear her laughter. We will never see her grow, achieve her dreams, or the life she deserves. Ricardo Melendez, Meshay's brother, called Kirkland, a soulless being put on this planet, a narcissist. And Nicole Norris, the grandmother, who started this whole story with that frantic call. She didn't speak in person, but she wrote a statement, read aloud by a victim advocate. The day I lost them, I lost a part of myself. A part of me died with my girls. I am no longer a girl mum. I am no longer a grandmother. Outside the courthouse. Purple balloons. Purple, the color of domestic violence awareness. Family, friends, advocates. They gathered, they cried, and then they let the balloons go. One by one. Up into the sky. And Michelle Bart, president of the National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation, she spoke about the failure. She said the criminal system failed Meshay. She said, he raped a 7-year-old and shot her and killed her. You have judges that let him out. You have a district attorney who gave him bail. Because remember, the Tiffany Hill Act passed in 2020, designed to require GPS monitors on domestic violence offenders. It wasn't used on Kirkland Warren. And 5 days later, 2 people were dead. So, I want to leave you with this. This story isn't just about one monster. It's about every single moment where someone could have stopped him. In Arkansas, in Vancouver, in a courtroom, in a credit union, with a restraining order, with an ankle monitor, every single moment. The system saw the warning signs and looked away until it was too late. Meshay Melendez was 27 years old. Layla Stewart was only 7. They deserved better. They deserved more. They deserved to be alive. So tell me in the comments, could this have been prevented? What needs to change? What laws need teeth? Until next time, stay safe. Keep your loved ones close. Hug them a little tighter tonight, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. And we'll see you very soon on the Decoder.